So the first thing on here is alternative to Ceph volume inventory. Um, this is something that was made by Paul Kuzner. Basically, the idea was that the Ceph volume inventory is a bit slow gathering the disk information. So we thought maybe he had some way of doing it faster. And so we put together this secondary header pad, basically explaining this whole thing. It goes into some detail on what it's doing and why it's better. Um, and so I just wanted to sort of bring it up here, just as a sort of idea. My sort of thoughts on it were um, maybe we have it as sort of an optional alternative, kind of like how we have the agent as a way to refresh things. Maybe it's something you can sort of turn on to do your device refreshing instead of the normal Ceph volume one. Um, and we could sort of have test and tautology for it and everything, make sure it's stable and everything before we really do anything with it. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess we might have to read through this a little bit, I guess, to sort of get the feel for it because there's a decent amount of information there. Does anyone have any sort of initial thoughts on this or issues with changing over from Ceph volume or anything? By the way, this would just be for the refreshing. This wouldn't be for like deploying the OSDs and like the batch commands or anything. Just be for refreshing the device information.
The first thing that pops into my head is why can't if this speed up is possible, why can't the speed up be applied to Ceph volume inventory?
I don't remember all details. I know one of the reasons was because Ceph volume inventory is running inside of a container, and this would not be, um, because
Hmm.
it's sort of right now it's part of our like Ceph packages, which we don't distribute the packages themselves necessarily anymore. We have them in the container, so we have to set up a container that then runs Ceph volume stuff. Right now, it's using some sort of hacky stuff with nsenter to run commands on the host directly. Um,
Okay.
but I know that was one of the problems, and I know he did try to mess with it, but I think he said he would have to have redone like enough of it where it would have been I don't know almost like a full overhaul of how they do it. There's a lot of other built-in things like the way they do the class setups and everything in there. That make it really hard to change inventory without also messing up everything else that Ceph Volume is doing. Don't
Okay.
want to touch.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of running everything out of a container, so saying that it feels like a little bit of a step backwards to me. But um, yeah, I'm no expert in the space.
Yeah, I assume this would end up being part of like the CephADM binary or something like that, the equivalent, where
And
we
the
kind
other
of
concern I
redeploy.
have is just, oh, now we have two ways to do it that need to be maintained and to be compatible.
Yeah, that's why I was thinking of maybe the way to go about it would be sort of similar to how the agent was set up, where right now we have tests in tautology that sort of branch off, and like one will test with the agent on, one will test with it off, and then to make sure they both pass. Um, but maybe have something like this where you have a few tests where you have an option, like a config option to turn this on, so it uses this instead of set volume. And then we have it in tautology, and we make sure that it's passing and everything, and then we give people a chance to maybe try it and use it and everything, and only then consider trying to turn it on by default. Even with like say something like the OSD memory auto tuning, it was like off by default for a really long time. And then what we ended up doing was we turned it on for new clusters only by having it turn on in Bootstrap, but it's not turn on if you like upgrade or anything. That way you're not destroying any like old clusters that people have that they built up in case there is a bug. Like new people will eventually like actually try it and everything because you turn it on by default. That was sort of like the process we've gone through with turning on some of these more experimental things. So I assume this would be something like that where we'd have to slowly, start with that, just having some test methodology for it, and then have the optional and everything, and then eventually turn it on just for the new builds, and see from there what people say if any bugs pop up. Yeah. So that is there though. That there's a lot of information in the other pad that Paul put together. Um, I'd request people if they have time to look through it, see what they think about it. I know it's kind of hard in this meeting just to say like suddenly like, oh, we have this other pad, you can read through it now because it's a bit short notice, but at least have people be aware that it's there. Get some initial thoughts. If people had any immediate issues people had. Maybe we can bring it up again next week if people have a bit more time to look at it or something. Yeah, so that's what I guess. I think maybe I'll just leave it on the agenda again for next week, and then maybe people have a bit more time to digest it then, because it is a lot of information to go over in like 90 seconds. So we can just move on for now to other topics we have. Um, so added backports, the Redvine tracker project.
That was me. I added that one. So this one, it's kind of a rehash of the, do we want to keep doing batch backports or do we want to create backport trackers? There's been a few members of our team that are used to the backport tracker scripts, which is it's that script or the documentation I posted there in the pad, which seems to be pretty common for a lot of the other Ceph component teams, including a lot of the manager dashboard teams. And so when they come in, they try and create a backport using the script. They cannot do it because we don't have a backport issue associated with our Redmine project. And so obviously there's a couple pros and cons here. Doing the batch backports to the N-1 release is awful convenient and reduces the noise. And then we've been cherry picking to the releases beyond that for other backports, which has worked well for us in the past. However, we've also missed a few backports on occasion, and that's caused some grief. So I guess it's just kind of to re-raise the question, do we want to have these tracked in Redmine so we know which items have been backported and kind of do this in a way that's similar to the way the other component teams have been handling this? Or do we want to continue with the batch backport, what we've been doing before?
Does having this component there make it so you can't do it any other way? You have to use sort of this procedure. I know like there was one thing in a batch backport that I know had a backport component open because it was not CephEDM targeted. It was I forget which one it was, but it was like did some CephEDM changes, some other things, and so I backported it in part of our batch backports, and I sort of just marked on that tracker that it was going to be in there.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, it's only if the component's an Orchestrator component. So if it's like the top level Ceph project in Redmine, then the script does work because it has a backport issue associated with that.
Okay. So yeah, basically what I'm asking is if you had this, would this make it so you can sort of do whatever you want? You can use the script if you want to, but you don't necessarily have to, or does this require you now use the script for everything you do?
It would make it optional. That would be one step, right? You could use the script and there would be a backport tracker created with it. And then it comes down to a matter of how we want to handle our backports. Do we feel it's necessary to track every backport so we know what's been backport, or do we not? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely at least open to having the backport issue thing available. Like it should definitely be possible for people to do that if they want to use the backport script for Orchestrator stuff. I don't see why we would prevent it. Yeah, and then I guess as far as we're moving forward, I mean, I still feel like it's super convenient for the N-1 release to do the batches. Maybe for N-2s, we start with just doing this, and then we see how it goes. So I know we're still putting a decent amount of things in Pacific. Bug fixes and that. I don't know. I mean, I think we definitely should at least open this this project so it's possible to use the backport script. And I guess we'll have to start playing around with it.
Okay.
See how much of an impact it has. But I think definitely, at least for the first step of opening the project, I don't see any reason not to.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Cool. Does anyone else have any opinion on it? Does anyone else here use that patchport script often or anything?
So in order to use this script, we have to maintain in good shape the information we put in the trackers in terms of to which branches we have to backport.
Yeah, so like I know like on our trackers we'll like just put in that like backport section like Quincy Pacific, and then like we just will update those trackers later. We'll move the pending backport and we'll move the resolve later. What this will do is it would have a different component outside of Orchestrator. It would be called like backport or something. And then whenever you use this script, it would actually create a whole new tracker for the backport. So instead of having one tracker for the thing in master and the backports, it would have a different tracker for each. And so the idea is that you can track it better, which things have been backported, which things haven't, if you have a separate tracker issue. And you can go look through the backport to see which things have been backported and which things are missing. That's sort of the idea.
I see.
Yeah, because right now you're just relying on people moving the tracker to pending backport and then like going through and looking at all the pending backport ones we have open.
Yeah.
That's sort of been our current strategy. This is the way that other teams typically do it. Is they just have this new script. I don't know how much of that is just because I think we were backporting more heavily than a lot of other teams. Because FDM was sort of new. Like Octopus was its first release. It's not like it's been around as long as some of the other things.
Yeah.
If we were backporting super heavily, and maybe as it slows down, this starts to become a better idea.
I mean, if it is something that can help us to automate the process.
Yeah, I mean, the idea is the script will sort of create the backport for you for a certain PR. Well, it's already been merged. It'll create your trackers, the backport tracker, and then I think you can also create the PR itself using the backport script. So instead of like just cherry picking things on top of branches like we've been doing, you could run this script. I think you just give it like which PR you want or something, and it'll backport it to whatever branch.
Yeah, it takes most of the manual work out. So you just tag it for which releases, the tracker issue, which releases you want this to be backported to, and then the input to the script is the backport tracker ID. And then it does all the cherry picking and creating the child trackers and associating them and everything for you. So less likely that things are missed.
So we just need to update the labels on the pull requests.
No, the backport label on the tracker. So everything's done through the tracker.
Which we're already doing a lot anyway. Like I know I've set a bunch of them to say like Pacific Quincy or whatever. It's just we were doing it. Well, yes, you had to do that still manually, but you then use the fact that you set that to have it create the backports and the other trackers for you instead of just having that one tracker that you're tracking yourself and make it through your backport. It's supposed to help not miss things that need to be backported. I think that's the idea.
Is this process documented somewhere? I mean, if using this script to.
I mean, we're the link in the track, the other pad. There it goes. It's over the script there. It looks like.
Yeah, I see. Okay.
At least try it. I know I'm sure we'll be backporting a bunch of stuff soon. I know you just did a Quincy batch like the other day, but there'll be more stuff to backport. So maybe next time I do a backport, I'll test it out. I'll try it, see how it goes.
Okay.
Especially now with the fact that I think Pacific backports are going to start slowing down a little bit, and it's going to be it's still be like a lot of Quincy stuff. Pretty much everything's going to be going to Quincy for the time being, but Pacific should be slowing down. It should be a bit easier to manage and stuff. So. I'll definitely at least test it out, and we need to open this issue the tracker project for the backbar stuff first, though, before we can do this. That'll be the first thing to do, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess overall is just we should open the project, and then we'll start playing around with it, and we'll see how it goes from there. But I think overall, it seems like it would be good to at least try it, see how it works for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyone have anything else they want to say on the backport stuff we're doing? No. All right, we can move on to the last issue here. Looks like there's a tracker issue. Oh, there's a status for this HNFS stuff.
Yes. Hey, this is Gautam, and I work on OpenStack Manila. And Ramana brought this up here in this meeting last week. And so I just was trying to fill in some details that you sought last week and trying to see if, we can get some assignee or discuss if the timelines don't make sense and stuff.
Yeah, I remember, what was it? Put in like when you wanted it in the other pad, I think a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like in August. I know I talked a little bit with the OpenStack team on Thursday about what was going on with it. I think they said Romano was working on a proof of concept. I don't see Romano in here. Francesco, do you
Yeah.
know you got an update on?
Yeah. So basically, Romana is working on this POC. We don't have any progress at the moment. I'm not sure about the status. Well, we reviewed the solutions and we came up with the tracker and the corresponding Badzilla. I think we need Romana to talk about this, the progress on this POC, because I have some questions as well on this tracker. Like I see, we're going to support first one Ganesha and one virtual IP. We need to manage the failover for the host, especially if you have multiple virtual IP and multiple Ganesha instances, and you need to keep consistency between virtual IP and Ganesha instances, right? So if we remove the HA proxy layer, which is one of the points of this solution, I was wondering if we need to remove keep alive D as well, because keep alive D is it can help in this scenario with the failover of the virtual IP, especially if you have multiple virtual IPs. While this logic can be complex to implement in Ceph ADM, and you are going to reinvent the wheel because you already have this solution based on keep alive D that works. So I want to hear opinions on this kind of question regarding which layer we're going to remove. I'm okay with the HA proxy for the issues that that we came up, but I'm not sure with keep alive D. So this is my question for Romana, but is not here, so I'm not sure we want to go ahead with this.
Yeah, he said it's a bit hard without Romano here. He was the one who was sort of looking at it the most, I think. I think ideally it would be nice if we could just reuse keep alive D stuff instead of having to re-implement it. Again, I'm not sure exactly what Romano is looking at in terms of how he's setting up his proof of concept, or whether it's proof of concept cans use keep alive D. We'd have to ask him about it.
Yeah. In OSP, we have Peacemaker, and basically we're doing the same thing, a similar thing with keep alive D in Ceph. So in theory, this kind of solution can fit at least one Ganesha and one virtual IP. The challenge would be extending the same solution to support multiple virtual IP and multiple Ganesha instances. We need some logic in Ceph ADM to make sure we have consistency for clients at least. So we need to reach the right Ganesha instance, which is tied to a specific virtual IP. And I think this is one of the questions for Ramana, if he has specific ideas on how to solve this kind of challenge.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Gautam, you have opinions on this thing. I
Yeah.
was thinking about this part, and I'm looking
Yep.
for opinions.
No, absolutely. So yeah, so I know he's working on the POC, but that was to kind of replicate um, the issue we have currently, which is that when you have client restrictions in the exports, you're not able to mount these shares, mount these FFS volumes because the client source IP is appearing differently and stuff. So I'm not. So I think he was going down this path of not using the ingress service, but having the NFS Ganesha server have a stable IP, which means that if the Ganesha server is down and needs to be restarted somewhere else, we move the IP, to that node and stuff. So that's I think what the initial approach would be. That would bring us back to parity with what we currently have with OpenStack Manila, where we are, like you said, having Pacemaker manage the HA, and there is only ever one active Ganesha server, and the virtual IP moves along with that server wherever it's incarnated. So that's the initial solution we're shooting for. And of course, if we wanted to extend that for scalability sake, I mean, we'd be interested in the multiple Ganeshas and multiple virtual IPs solution. So that's what this tracker is all about, I think. And so he at least telling me that he was planning to get somebody assigned to take a look at, in terms of timelines as to when that could be possible. Right now, I suppose you can bind the Ganesha to some address, but that address is not really going to move. I mean, there's nothing, orchestrating that address to move along with Ganesha. That's the missing piece.
Okay. I mean, also probably have to talk with him a little bit about sort of the details on what stuff we need to do. I would say definitely like the first thing we need to do is definitely get back to the vanilla parity thing, because this solution is sort of being made for OpenStack, and so if we can at least have it so we're not having a regression there, that would be ideal to start with.
Absolutely, yeah.
But yeah, I'll have to talk with Ramon on exactly what he's doing and what logic CephVDM would need to manage this. I guess to basically do what Pacemaker was doing for you guys. Or sounds like. So.
Yeah. And so Ramana is off the entire week, but I can send him a note, and we'll probably add a topic to the next week's meeting if it helps.
Yeah, that might be good. If we can do it next week when he's around. We have all the people around.
Yep.
Talk about it.
Makes sense. Thanks.
All right. That was good. Now we'll be pushing a couple of topics to next week. Yeah, so that was all the topics we had on the pad. Sounds like we're gonna have to bring them again next week, but that's fine. Still some good discussions today. Does anyone have anything else they want to talk about in here? Any other topics that aren't on the pad?
This is something that I was discussing the other day with Guillaume. I think he's not in the call. Basically, we are still using some images from Docker. Are we planning to move all the images to Pi at some point?
Yeah, he had mentioned this to me as well, because we have one pull request already open for doing this for Keep Alive D and HA proxy. And it's been open for a while, actually. I think the reason it had never been tested and merged or anything was because I know we don't hit those rate limits in our tautology testing, which means that there must be something being done, so we're not actually pulling from Docker. And so I was trying to figure out why, and what we're doing there exactly. But I never got around to doing that and figuring out sort of what's happening, because I wanted to actually test if the pulling that image itself worked, but I can't test it until I figure out how it actually works in there. But then in the general sense, yeah, I guess there's no reason really to keep using the Docker images if we have the option to mirror them on Quay. Because it is just going to hit problems with the rate limiting and stuff. So I know that's why we were doing it with Keep Alive D. I think it was somebody else's CI originally was hitting the rate limiting, and then so we needed to mirror it there so they could use the Quay versions of the image. Then we never got around to changing the defaults because the thing I was talking about. But I don't. What?
Yeah, so actually I'm checking the binary and we are using, like now we have 5 images.
I know it's a lot of monitoring stack stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Some new of them, I think they were added by the dashboard team recently, plus the ones you mentioned.
Yeah. I guess the Promtail and Loki stuff.
Loki stuff, yeah, exactly.
On there. I think some of the other monitoring stack like Prometheus, the node exporter and stuff might still be on there. And then I don't remember if SNMP image is also Docker. Might be.
Yes, we are.
Yeah. So if it's possible to mirror those, we could. I don't know how much work it is actually to do that. I'd have to ask Guillaume how realistic it is to do all of them like that. But I know he seems to be within the one who was interested to begin with in maybe doing it. So maybe it is possible. We'll have to see. I know we don't deploy all of those a lot in tautology, and I think that's why it's sort of just been ignored. Because it's really it's mostly an issue for our CI. Because if you're only pulling the image once, it shouldn't be a huge deal.
Yep.
But we'll have to see how much of a maintenance task it is to actually do that. Whether it's worth it, just to avoid that issue, I guess. But yeah, we need Guillaume to comment on how hard that is to do.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, I'm not against it. What?
Yeah, thanks. I will see.
All right. Yeah, but I'm not against it in general. If it turned out not to be super hard, why not?
Yeah.
All right. Does anyone have any other topics to bring up here? Okay. Seems like we're good. In that case, we can end here, and I'll see you all again next week.
Great.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.